Just like everybody is different, every journal will be different too. I used to spend hours going through Pinterest and Study Blur for inspiration. It was both inspiring and discouraging. My handwriting would never look like theirs. I couldn't doodle to save my life, and it seemed like every few months there was a new must-have marker or stencil that it seemed like everybody had, and I couldn't journal without. All of this chasing and copying did not make me happy or help improve my life, but it did result in me spending a lot of money. Handwriting. The first thing I recommend doing when personalizing your journal is embracing your handwriting, whether that means loving it the way it is or changing it until you do. Graphology is the study of handwriting, and it's often used to infer the writer's character. I mentioned this briefly in the first chapter. Graphologists break down each letter into separate parts, like the starting stroke, end stroke, upper extensions, downstroke, lower extensions, essential strokes versus flourishes, loops, etc., and use the characteristics of each stroke to learn about the writer. The size, shape, and space of your letters all have meaning. When I was working on my handwriting, I looked at a lot of graphology symbolism to try and help myself embody the handwriting of someone with the characteristics I desired. I wanted things to be simple but beautiful. I decided to skip the loopy, swirly flourishes and stick to the basics. I don't remember all of the choices I made now, but I do really like my handwriting. I don't know if you can actually change your personality by changing your handwriting, but still make it a point to write slightly above the baseline guide because that's a sign of someone who thinks highly of themselves. I can definitely struggle with negative self-talk, so this is a way I combat that. Again, I don't even know if it works that way, but it's interesting to think about. It's my journaling version of fake it till you make it. And while we're still on the subject of penmanship, did you know that writing in cursive has many proven health benefits? Many more than printing or typing. The College Board found that kids who did their essays in cursive scored higher on their SATs than children who used block print. Studies show that handwriting notes helps us remember them better than if we type them. We can type almost as fast as we hear, so instead of processing information, we're merely transcribing it. When writing things down, you have to process the information, determine what's valuable, and go from there. Using cursive can also make you a better speller. Thinking of words as words instead of separate letters means that you're more likely to get it right when you start to write. Studies show that there tend to be less errors in cursive manuscripts than in print. Children using cursive also tend to do better on spelling tests and reading tests. It's not as important this day and age to know cursive or have neat handwriting, especially when everything is typed except an odd form here and there, but it's still, in my opinion, an invaluable skill. Most schools quit teaching cursive a long time ago. It's a dying art form. A quick online search will bring up many arguments on why schools should stop teaching cursive and focus on more important things, but I think that if you can learn something that will improve your ability to learn everything else, it's definitely worth spending time on. Additionally, people with specific learning disabilities like dysgraphia can write in cursive when print isn't possible. Similarly, people with dyslexia have a far easier time learning to write in cursive because letters all start on the baseline, flow from left to right, and are formed very differently. Beyond the health benefits, the reason I lean so much towards cursive, especially in my diary entries, is because it's beautiful and romantic and it makes me feel connected to women throughout the ages that also pause to write in their diaries. I also like the fact that it's harder to read at a glance. Anyone looking over my shoulder or trying to catch a glimpse of my thoughts on paper will have a more difficult time. For those who think that cursive is hard to read, there is hybrid handwriting. This is what I use. It's a mix of cursive and print. It's neater and easier to read than cursive, looks beautiful, and has most of the same benefits of writing in cursive. Hybrid handwriting uses traditional print letter forms and joins them simply with connecting letters. Now that you know how special your handwriting is, let's talk about finding your voice. The words you use to describe yourself and others use to describe you should also describe your voice. This is how you develop an authentic voice that will allow your readers to get to know you, the real you. Writing should flow naturally. Don't push it too hard. Write how you think and how you talk. Your book should reflect your personality. Are you a genial person and want your friendliness to come across in your journal? Are you a business professional and plan on using your journal to chronicle the rise to the corner office? Think about how you want to come across and be consistent. Is it natural for you to use text speak like LOL and gotcha and wanna, or do you prefer to be more formal? Do you use short sentences or long run-on ones, or a mixture of both? The more you write, the more you'll develop your voice. Don't use words or sentence structures that you normally wouldn't use unless it's intentional. And if you do because you've been reading too much Shakespeare, don't worry about it. Reading a lot also helps you develop your voice. So, to contradict myself, try writing in one of your favorite author styles. Experimenting like this is a great way to find your voice and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Maybe try writing an entry like a poem. Think about your audience. If you're going to burn your books after finishing them, then you don't have to worry about this. But consider if your children might read them one day, or your grandchildren. This can have a profound effect on how you write and what you write about. What do you think they'd want to know or find interesting? What do you want to be remembered for? Is there anything too intimate you'd rather leave out if you know who'll be reading these words? It's common to miss a day or two when writing, but here's a top tip. Don't start every diary entry with, "Sorry I haven't written in a while," or whatever form you go to. Just start your entry. It's so boring to read over and over and over again. I know from experience. And if you date your diary entries, which you should, it's double boring. And if you fall off the wagon, don't feel like you have to go back in and write about everything that happened and start where you left off. You can do a quick recap if you want, but pressuring yourself to write out what happened for days while you were too busy or too depressed or whatever it was to write in the first place will just make you put it off for longer. Give yourself a break and your journal a chance and just write whatever you want instead of pressuring yourself to catch up before getting into whatever inspired you to pull out your book in the first place. Making things interesting. Now it's time to add some fun. While books filled with writing are beautiful and interesting in their own way, I found that adding visual interest really draws the eye and makes the reader linger. I definitely don't consider myself an artist, and quite frankly, most of my drawings embarrass me a little, especially when they see the light of day or Instagram, but they really add character and help me remember and navigate my book better. They also help me slow down. I can fill pages with thoughts quite quickly, but slowing down to sketch and paint and ink, etc., a journal page takes time, and pouring myself into the page is so relaxing no matter what the outcome. Artwork and photos really make a journal come alive, and we all know that a picture is worth 1,000 words. It doesn't matter how well you describe something, sometimes a little sketch or printing out a picture and pasting it in will convey memories better. One of the ways I got a lot more comfortable drawing and adding visual interest into my books is by doodling a lot. I love using ribbons for banners, and arrows turn an average drawing into an information-rich diagram. Easy flowers are a great addition and decoration for any page. Use a pencil and a light hand, and there's no way you can mess up. Doodles are pretty easy, and there are tons of examples to choose from online if you need inspiration or a guide. Adding highlight and shadow really elevate even the simplest of doodles. Next time you're outside, snap a quick pic of a wildflower, even if it's one growing between the cracks in the sidewalk, and draw it in the margins of your journals. Journals, as long as the paper is good enough quality, make really great sketchbooks. One of the things I've learned from nature journaling is to draw for information and not necessarily to make a pretty picture. If my 3-year-old can name what I drew, then I consider it a success. Another thing I do for the overall layout of my books, to keep them looking really uniform throughout, is using different fonts for different things. For example, you could use faux calligraphy for titles, cursive for diary entries, and all caps for agenda items because it's easy to read quickly. Different pen thicknesses or colors add distinction too. I also like to add in receipts and tickets and brochures and maps and tags and notes and any little bits that tell my story better or make it more interesting. Mistakes. What if you make a really big mistake and can't erase it? If there's nothing on the other side of the page, you can tear it or cut it out. If that's not an option, you can hide it with one or some stickers. You can paint over it and turn it into a happy little accident a la Bob Ross. Whiteout is an option too, though not my favorite. And if worse comes to worse, you can just turn the page and move on. Nobody's perfect, and in the grand scheme of things, it's really not worth stressing over.